So let's talk about this year's flu season. So even though flu season is actually close to coming to an end, it typically runs through April. We wanted to actually take some time to highlight how this pandemic affects us each year. And I guess it's actually affecting us a lot this year as well. So first, there is an economic cost associated with actually getting the flu. So according to the CDC, this flu season will cost America about $10.4 billion. And that includes both hospitalizations and outpatient care. However, the larger cost is that of life. So if we look back at the 2009 to 2010 season, when the swine flu epidemic was at its peak, also known as H1N1, at that time, about 60.8% of people in America suffered. 274,000 were hospitalized, while 12,469 died from the flu or from related complications. So if we turn to this year's flu season, in just 1 week, the third week of January, there were, I guess, over 4,000 deaths from pneumonia and the flu combined. And it is hard to come up with a good estimate number because most of the deaths happen about a couple weeks after onset, and they die from secondary complications such as anything like respiratory infections, pneumonia, bronchitis, things like that. But it's estimated about 12 to 56,000 could die in any given year. So in the US, with the continual rising costs of pharmaceuticals going unchecked, popular medications such as Tamiflu has more than doubled in the last 10 years. So in case you don't know what Tamiflu is, it's a drug prescribed by doctors that's given to patients, I guess, about 24 to 48 hours after the initial onset of flu-like symptoms. And it helps lessen those symptoms. And I think it boasts the claim of actually helping recover from the flu faster. So January, a generic drug was introduced, but it was not introduced in time to help thousands of people. And this generic drug actually cut the cost of I guess, to about half of what Tamiflu costs. So one tragedy that was noted due to prescription costs when it was reported that in January, a 38-year-old woman and a mother who happened to be a school teacher died from complications due to the flu because she actually felt she couldn't justify the $116 costs to her family that it would have cost to get treatment. So this begs the question, how many others have foregone care or treatment because they did not want to put a financial burden on themselves or their family? Also, it is increasingly uncommon for people to have sick pay in the US. So places of employment are either forced to push their employees to come into work and thereby infecting the other employees around them, or they basically say, you can stay home, but you're not going to get paid for that time. So this actually feeds in a bigger loss of money for businesses. This year's prediction of loss of production due to being sick, I guess, is an additional $7 billion to the estimated cost of that $10.4 billion. And that's already going towards hospitals and outpatient care. That's an almost $1 billion increase from the year before. So knowing this, what's kind of the most important takeaway from all of this? So one thing that we could argue is that we need some sort of social reform, and that reform could be take place into a universal healthcare system, such as Medicare for All, that would offer that would not only allow for access, but would also assure affordable access to care. And we could also do a new deal that would assure sick leave to employees so that they aren't going into work and getting their fellow employees sick. And so, Janet, do you have any thoughts? Well, one thing I want to interrupt here is that from all indication, it seems like this year the flu season has been particularly bad because one of the issues is that the vaccine was not particularly reliable. And vaccines are traditionally good. I'm not saying don't get vaccinated. Everybody should get vaccinated if they can afford it. But this year, just the estimate of what kind of flu viruses that would take place this year, the predictions were off. And so people that did get vaccinated ended up still getting sick from this basically unpredicted flu virus. And there's a few different flu viruses running around this year. And another thing is that if memory serves me right, the current administration has actually cut funding to the CDC for that would have gone towards epidemics like this, and they haven't even said anything regarding this year's flu and what the CDC intends on doing to assure that it doesn't happen again, or to make sure that everybody gets treatment or anything along those lines. So, Janet, do you have any thoughts on this?
In regards to the people feeling like they need to come into work, whether it's monetarily or because the employer is telling them they have to or they'll lose their job, and that happened to me at one time, so I know it happens. And I mean, personally, I have a condition that's a poor immune system, and I worked with people who were going through cancer treatment that can't be around people that are sick like this. And for something that would take someone a few days to get over, someone like me or other people that have conditions like that with their immune system, it can turn into something horrendous, if not death.
Right. So immunocompromised persons their condition could exacerbate basically if they're subjected to any type of virus or bacterial infection. And then you compound that with actually having that infection, such as the flu or anything like that. So not only do their symptoms increase and their condition can potentially worsen, they have to, fight this virus or the flu on top of that. And I've always kind of thought that, that it was really selfish of people to come in and infect other people. And I lived a decent amount of my life thinking that. But as I've gotten older, I realized that what choices do they have if they have to feed their family and they don't have sick leave and they don't have paid sick leave? That's the important thing. And they don't have, any way to diagnose an illness. So they may be coming in thinking like, oh, it's just temporary. But really, and it may not be even particularly bad for them, but they get next to an immunocompromised person and it's going to destroy them, to where they could miss 1 week, 2 weeks of work. And so, again, I don't think part of me still wants to go like, it's kind of selfish to come in and get everybody else sick. But realistically, I understand the problem is that they don't have a choice. I'm lucky in a position now where I do get sick leave and annual leave. I don't think anybody gets that. No, none of the people that I know in my personal life have sick leave. They I have paid leave, but it's a combination of sick leave. They just take it whenever they want, and it's not separated out. So they get 7.5 hours of leave or eight hours of leave per month or per paycheck. Well, I get 2. I get 7.5 for annual, 7.5 for sick per paycheck, and so that gives me 2 days. But who was fortunate enough to get that?
Well, then you have the employers that are not hiring full time. They're hiring people for 30 hours a week, because they can't pay they don't want to pay the benefits, or I understand the benefits add up. I mean, healthcare is excruciating high in this country. So, I mean, I can't totally fault the smaller companies or even the smaller corporations doing this, but then you're just getting all these people that feel like they have to go to work, and sometimes they have 2 jobs because they're not making enough money in their 30-hour job. So they take on a part-time job and they feel like they have to go to that job too. So here you are, having these people spread the virus.
I think one of the solutions is just a new deal, assured paid sick leave. I think that would help. Again, another solution to assure that people don't die from the flu, of all things, right? That's something that modern medicine is capable of at least helping with symptoms. But one of the things to do is to assure that everybody has health care and not access to health care. I can go walk into a hospital right now or walk into a doctor's office and be like, yeah, treat me. And they're going to be like, okay, give me money. So it's not about access. It's about being able to afford said access. And it just floors me that, we have something like a flu epidemic that nobody seems to be talking about, for one. And two, that we have the technology and the resources to actually ensure that people don't die from the flu.
A lot of what is coming out of Big Pharma are treatments for symptoms, not cures. I mean, we haven't seen a cure in I don't know, ages. I think 1950s or something, and everything else is just treating the symptoms.
It's kind of going into kind of conspiracy theories. It's like, yeah, it's actually easier or better for profits to assure that people stay sick so that they keep buying the product. So if you cure somebody 100%, well, they're not going to need the medications to upkeep whatever pain modulation medications, or they're going to not need actually like medications itself to help, reduce inflammation, like steroids. So they're not going to need that anymore if you cure them 100%. So let's just make sure that they have an extended lifespan, that's near normal or normal, right? But let's not cure them of their ailment. I mean, it's a smart model if you think about it, but I don't want to perpetuate that's what 100% what they're doing, but I can envision a world in which that would be the case.
Well, coming from the invisible illness side of things and this, having a disability because of it, I can actually see how easy it is for people to believe this. I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to us, to watch, we go from pills to pills to pills, trying to treat symptoms, but we're not really hearing, we're getting a cure here, So I can see it. I mean, I understand it. I'd like to see much more money going into research for cures in particular. And I mean, if there is something out there, if there's someone working on something that they specifically think that they can cure, like say the flu, I think that would be a good resource for putting our money into.
I think this is why it's important to also note that we need researchers that are working on cures outside of pharmaceutical companies, like academic researchers. And we need to make sure that they're funded. That's what those health institute grants are for, is to finding cures or to finding at least better diagnostics. The majority of things were not developed by pharmaceutical companies. They were bought and purchased by them. It was developed by scientists and researchers because they were invested in ensuring that there was a cure or at least some sort of thing to help better diagnose particular ailments that humans experience. And again, that's something that this current administration has done, is cut funding to those grants for those researchers. So not only, it's just this administration has no understanding of science, and that's a problem. And that's why they're cutting those programs, because it's like, oh, they haven't helped humans. Well, they helped humans find cures for certain things. They've helped humans assure that, or at least they think that outside of Big Pharma, nothing can be done. But Big Pharma is not interested in assuring and aiding the community. They're interested in maximizing profits. And so they will do what they can to maximize those profits. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be innovative. They're always trying to figure out ways to, make kind of a little tweak on a medication so that they can, update their patent and therefore charge more money for a particular drug. And as this other drug starts going generic, and that happened with the modafinil, which is Provigil or Nuvigil. I don't know if you've heard of. It's a pseudostimulant, considered a pseudostimulant. Yeah, and so that it's a very expensive drug now, and it was set to go generic. But I think, yeah, anyways, they got in trouble for this, for paying off the company that was going to produce the generic drug. And then they also created a new drug that was like, had a little bit of a tweak in the chemistry to say like, oh, this is a new thing. Maybe it's a slow release modafinil type drug. And so I think they called that new vigil or something like that because it's new. But anyways, yeah, there's definitely, I don't think big pharma is interested in helping. That's why we need to assure that these scientists and researchers outside of big pharma are capable of doing their research and are funded so that they can do their research.